Alright, folks, here's chapter 18 Return of Law and Order. And here's a disclaimer. And back to the picture. And I'll be continuing from the last left off. So, suddenly, Officer Kai tapped on Ephraim's shoulder. Hey, Ephraim, why did you go on talking about our organization? I believe that you spoke too much, even though it was my fault that the topic went out of hand. They were a good distance away from Celebria by that time. Tassus will eventually work with us in Helki Island. Also, I believe that it's not much of a big deal to tell him about what we do, Ephraim said. Yeah, then would you rather want our stay there to turn awkward and our relations be sour with him? Placidas said. Officer Kai paused for a moment. You guys are right. I may be mistaken. I thought about that too when I heard you talking about the raid. But I just decided to push with it and don't show that we have messed up. Anyways, they told us much about what they do, so it's only fair that we share some about what we do too, Ephraim said. Hey Ephraim, we should drink some wine then, Placido said. Ephraim shook his head. Nah, I really don't feel like drinking here. Let's drink it along with our whole group. Not only that, you'll need to take lavatory business more often. Yeah, you're right, it's not recommended on small ships, Placido said. After that, they all remained on the ship in silence, each at his own area, thinking on his own. Ephraim did much of the sailing since he was the only one who knew how. Placidus and Officer Kai lied down and looked at the sky while munching on their almonds. Passius was at the front deck gazing into sea ahead of him, and Lucio was at the rear of the ship looking at everyone else, carefully studying their behaviors. When it came time for dinner, everyone gathered together to give thanks and eat. Man, I would say that today was really worth it. I bet Thomas and Claus would be happy about the result of our journey here. Placidus started the conversation. Ephraim chuckled. Indeed, I never knew that Tassos was meaning it for real when he told us last time that we could borrow his documents free of charge and for any time. Our group gets seriously lucky anywhere we go, Officer Kai said. That's all thanks to the Lord Most High. No other group in Principal Fortress military maintains the separate worship day other than Sunday. I figure that's the blessings we get from him, Ephraim said. Blessings? What do you mean by blessings? Lucio said. Ephraim looked carefully at Lucio. Lucio, I figure that you're expecting the blessings to be wealth and treasure boxes full of gold and silver. Am I right? Well, yeah. Then what else is there? Lucio leaned back. The Lord's blessings that I have mentioned aren't really the ones that you're thinking about. They instead mean how your life goes on. They mean joy, hope, well-being of people around you, and other things that are beyond health, beyond wealth. Ephraim drank some water. The Lord gives and takes as he sees fit, and handles your life in his will. Yeah, Lucio, I agree with Ephraim because there are verses in the Bible in which the Lord won't let any evil come near you if you uphold his commandments and live as how he taught you to live. Also, there are mentions of how he raises up the kingdoms and destroys them in time. Thus, we need to see beyond wealth if we want to gain more wisdom, Placida said. Officer Kai cleared his throat. That's interesting, since aren't we the only ones who got off easily after the previous raiding event? The medium melee guys lost many in their ranks with injured ones unable to participate for at least a good month. That's what the doctor said. There are heavy melee guys. Not only do they always have intense training routines, but they also need to train the newcomers up to their levels, not to mention overseeing medium melee guys to get with the system. And archers were bombarded with rebukes and other punishments from the executives, which leaves us, whom the executives left alone, saying that we're just oddballs who get to participate in the organization, but maintain our autonomy at the same time. Yeah, I love how our group is just overlooked often and not controlled much by the executives. We get to do things on our own and have fun, Apasios said. Placidus chuckled. Good thing you enjoy that, Apasios, because the recruits who want attention and seek many guidelines favor melee infantry much more than us. Apasios looked at Placidus for a while. I wonder then, what was there 6 people trying to go for archer group when there was just space for 4? When I said us, it didn't include archers. Many of us Romans are used to archery, but not the crossbows and guns. Those are time consuming to shoot, and many soldiers are impatient, Placidus said. Officer Kaya laughed. And that's why we still get the least attention. The executives keep us, because they need some soldiers to protect the archers when we need to separate along the way like the last time. But we wouldn't want higher quality melee soldiers, unless they have to pay them more. Anyways, it's complicated. Ephraim nodded. I think they prefer it that way too. Since we usually don't go along with the whole group, we tend to find out some flaws in other soldiers' positions and protect them as needed. Like when the Turks were trying to ambush us on that street fight, we found out and covered for other soldiers' flanks. Yeah, I'm almost certain that Lord Pericles saw that happen, but just pretended to not notice since we were doing our job, Officer Kai said. Lucius suddenly sat up straight. Then, why did Lord Pericles just move up without waiting for us? Because it was obvious that we didn't need his help when he and other soldiers were chasing down the enemy. Just because he saw us doesn't mean he will wait for us to finish, Ephraim said. The soldiers munched on their food for a while. Hey, Placidus, what do you think about those documents Tassos lent us? Apossius broke the silence. I really love them. You know that it's every engineer's dream to learn how to build new things, and especially learning from someone who is so much more skilled than he is, Placidus said. Would Constance be interested in that too? Just wondering because you guys are a bit different in your area of interest, Officer Kai said. He would definitely be interested in that. It's because the engineering assignments we get from the headquarters is quite similar all the time. They're getting old now, so we want different things to do, Placidus sighed. Even the various work in the town aren't sufficient. Instead, they're more stressful than fulfilling. Therefore, this event will definitely satisfy us. That's really good to hear. Commander Kairos told me that you've been quite bored these days, Ephraim said. Placidus nodded and grinned. Yeah, he is right. I just felt like I wasn't doing anything much fulfilling in my life. Officer Kai looked at Lucio. Hey Lucio, what do you think about participating in building our mining complex? You have pretty much remained silent and didn't really say your opinion about it. Lucio shrugged. I don't have any opinion. I'm just getting along with the flow of our group. Therefore, I'll just be a participant. Nothing more and nothing less. Ephraim chuckled. You do know that you will be rewarded based on the amount of contribution you've given, right? Yes, I know, Lucio scowled. But I don't care much about it since I already have more than enough money and there's no proof that the mining complex will be successful. More than enough money? Placidus stopped to think. Oh yeah, it's because you stayed here for 2 years without spending much. Lucio smiled. Yes, with the free meals and housing, the money just piles up. Aren't you paying back the money that you owe to the headquarters? Placidus said. Lucio grunted. I already paid back the gun portion, but I still need to pay the armor and equipment portion. You should pay back all the money if you have enough, since the interest accumulates over time, Ephraim said. Lucio clenched his hands. Oh, jeez, I forgot about that. Thanks for letting me know. Oftentimes I forget to pay them back. Officer Kai suddenly slowly turned to look at Apossius. Hey, Apossius, surely you too owe money to the headquarters, right? Apossius shrugged. I don't think so. I didn't borrow any money from them. Officer Kai flinched. Then, how did you get your equipment? Lord Pericles gave them to me in exchange for using my sword, Apossius said. Ephraim gasped. Just for using your sword? Yes, he said that it's a rare kind and must have a use for it, Apossius said. Soon the 4 other soldiers stared at Apossius in disbelief with their mouths open. What? Is there something wrong? Apossius started blushing. Of course there is. What kind of sword was that? Placidus said. It was a Damascene sword, Apossius said. Placidus nodded. No wonder his sword looked different on that raid. Not only did his sword look different, but also his behavior was different as well, for he and the sword seemed like as one, Ephraim said. Officer Kai placed his hand on Apossius' shoulder. Good luck with taking the sword back from him later on. Huh? Why is that? Apossius looked at Officer Kai. Just think about it. A man who's really into a sword and has gotten a taste of it, would he really give it back later? Officer Kai said. Pasios fell silent because he previously thought otherwise. Officer Kai turned away to eat his food. I'm just speaking my opinion, not trying to make you sad in any way. He could give it back to you, that is possible. You could also let him have it. Bargain with a fresh set of new equipment in the future for letting him have the sword, Ephraim said. Placidus chuckled. Yeah, it'll be best if you go along with Ephraim's idea. It's because when Lord Pericles borrows something good from someone else, he'll do whatever it takes to have ownership of it. I know how he is just by looking at him. I kind of felt that too when you came into the hospital to discuss it, Hasio said. Oh, that's an absolute sign that he's really interested in the sword. He doesn't usually go out of his way to other people to borrow something, Placido said. Thus went the ship right back to Principe Island. It was already dark when they arrived at the fortress, and other soldiers were waiting for them with worried looks. The worried looks turned into a great joy when Ephraim and Placidus handed out a barrel full of wine from Tasso's winery. Officer Anatolius immediately filled up his wineskin and drank some. Wow, Ephraim, you've got some great picks. It hits the spot really well. They soon moved over to a fire pit, and others brought some food to enjoy the night even more. Ephraim tapped the barrel. This barrel is all for you guys. Have your fill as you wish. Gee, thanks, Ephraim. We never expected you to bring something for us, Captain Claus said. This is the least that we could do while all you guys were working so much on Halki Island, Ephraim said. Thomas chuckled. You definitely found the right time to give us the drink. Other guys were continuously talking about when we will be able to get some booze. Hey, so how did it go on Halki Island? Placido said. We've made great progress. Trees were cut down, but we didn't cut them down into firewood size because Constance wanted us to use them to make the necessary buildings, Thomas said. Placidus held up his bag. I have documents here and we could look over them on Thursday. Great job, Placidus, but we won't be looking over them on Thursday because we need to clear out more trees around the shack area to construct other necessary buildings, Thomas said. Okay, I see how it is. I guess Constance decided to just go at it with his own decision, Placidus said. That wasn't just his idea, but instead all of us here agreed to it. You could perhaps talk to him about that tomorrow. But before then, our plan is to clear the trees first, Thomas said. Aren't the inspectors coming soon to check that place? Ephraim said. Nah, they're not coming until weeks later. So we have much time before that to clear the trees, Thomas said. The soldiers drank and made merry for the night. Then they collapsed on their beds and slept soundly. The next several weeks went by without any big issues. Throughout such duration, the fortress soldiers trained, finished the southern road, maintained the fortress, improved their weapon skills, and worked in various places in the town during their spare time. The heavy melee infantry platoon had by that point trained the newcomers somewhat up to the group standards and maintained their equipment for any moment to go out on a raid. Their work assignment was increasing the farmland by clearing the trees and cultivating the ground in the east of the island to get it ready for farming. Their next step was to build houses on the spot and acquire contracts with the potential tenants recruited from the Princess Islands and Constantinopolis. The tenants would live in the houses while working in the fields and would need to make payments to the fortress either by crops or money. On the other hand, the medium melee infantry platoons jointly worked on the southern road clearing trees, digging up stumps and roots, and flattening the ground to get it ready for horse riding and wagons. They also trained the recruits somewhat up to the group's standards. Then they started enlarging the Principal town's southern district to build houses for the stone quarry workers to live in. After that, Commander Lefter's platoon's work assignment was to enlarge the harbor of the Principal town to house more ships docked in it, so that they receive more revenue from increased trade, and especially to house more ships for the Principal fortress. Commander Lepido's platoon's work assignment was to enlarge the market square to accommodate for the increased trade when the harbor gets finished. When both the harbor and the market square get enlarged, the two medium melee infantry platoons will start working on making the stone quarry to function. Furthermore, the archers helped the medium melee infantry platoons in working on the southern road. They had a bit of issues in overcoming the previous fallout they had in their group and regretted such an event since lavatory cleaning duties became theirs to do for 3 years. However, with the presence of more interesting recruits and dissolution of small groups, the archers slowly but eventually improved their relations with one another. Therefore, they were able to get together and obtain another work assignment after 3 months, and it was building a shipyard on the Principal town's northern district, since there wasn't enough coastal space on the southern district. Their reasons for shipyard was to build new ships for the fortress, and have a place for fishermen, merchants, and travelers to come and get their ships repaired when those get damaged over time. In the end, they were able to obtain enough funds to help pay for an entire overhaul of their group's equipment. It was a great shakeup and cleanup of previous archers' reputation, and Captain George's group, along with Commander Kairos, was promoted to armored archers with bigger shields, durable armor, and secondary weapons, while all of Captain Niles' group received leather vests and steel helmets. Lastly, Thomas and Captain Claw's group brought their physical training somewhat up to the medium melee infantry platoon's level, but to the dismay of Thomas, they couldn't quite match the hand-to-hand combat skills to that of melee guys. Their work assignment was to get the copper mine started at least by the winter, and it was apparent that they were going well with the schedule. Ephraim, Placidus, Officer Kai, Apasios, and Lucio were unanimously selected to take a trip once every 2 weeks to Tasso's house to exchange information and receive various guidance and lessons from him, which would help successfully build the mining complex and get the management going by the winter. There were times when they would take more than a day to venture out somewhere else to get necessary supplies, or tarry at Celebriya longer to rest up and receive further important lessons from Tassos. During their return after such days, they would be frowned upon by the executives, but no punishments were given, since the executives were just too busy elsewhere. Lastly, Placidus and Constance continued to help them whenever they could, and the whole group obtained a great score from the executives due to their hard work without much pressure from them. In the end, all platoons improved and became a cohesive group of fortress soldiers, and the executives were happy with the results. The fortress itself was improving, and its keepers were adding various services to meet the soldiers' needs, and for the first time after many years, there was increasing hope for the organization. Passius was just about to get the hang of using his sword after some weeks, but along with Lucio he was still far behind from other group members. However, they continued to live their lives and became happier as the weeks went by. The next chapter will focus on the events after 4 months. Alright, thank you for listening. So the next chapter will be called Chapter 19, The Great Progress. So with that, I end this video and thank you for listening again.